So Marianne Williamson went on to Sean Hannity. Yes, she did. I was very surprised. I think she has been on Fox before, but I have to say, out of all the Fox shows to go on to, I do not think that this was the one. And not necessarily because of her, but just because of the style of interview that Sean Hannity typically does. And it's a style I'm not fond of. He doesn't like to allow the guests to answer the questions. So I don't like that whole the Bill Maher style interview. I don't like that. I like to hear what people are actually going to say. But she went on there and Case Study QB captured it. Now I want you to see this. I'm going to chime in between here and there. I do have things to say. Thank you so much for this Case Study QB. Hold on to your seats. This is a doozy. We're going to dive in.
You watched Joe Biden's re-election announcement video. You may have seen something very interesting at the end. Take a look at your screen and see what it says on the bottom. Paid for by the Democratic National Committee. So the DNC is all in for Biden, and they've rigged the primary before it even starts. Remember, they're going to bypass New Hampshire, go straight to South Carolina. They're not even holding any debates, despite the fact that a majority of Democrats do not want Joe to run for a second term, but Joe isn't the only one running. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. recently entered the race, by the way, and he's up to 19% in the polls. That's a pretty big number, I think. And author Marianne Williamson, she ran back in 2020. If you recall, she is back in the race, and she announced her campaign before Biden did, and she did it longer than 3 minutes and didn't have to tape it. And she's asking Joe Biden to debate her. And she joins us now from Washington, D.C. tonight, the swamp. Marianne, how are you?
First and foremost, I just want to add the fact that the DNC is paying for Joe Biden's ads said paid for by the DNC. I don't know what else to show people to prove to people that this is all a fixed game. I really don't. I'm glad he pointed that out, though. You're not going to be too happy about this interview, though.
I'm fine, thank you. Thank you for having me.
I actually am going to start out in agreement with you. I think we'll disagree on other stuff. I think it would be fair for Joe Biden to debate you and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Why do you think he's not debating, and do you believe he's in a steep cognitive decline?
Well, I think in a democracy, what's important is that people have a right to see their options. I think this is an extremely important time in American history, and anyone who feels moved to run for president should have their say, and the voters should hear what they have to say, they should hear their agenda, and the voters should decide who they...
So I want to add in here, even though I don't agree with this strategy, I still think they should be able to debate. I think that's BS to tell people like, yeah, we're just not going to hold debates because we don't feel like it. Just because I think that's ridiculous. I will say that much. But listen to this response.
Want to be president.
Okay, how about part two of my question? Do you believe he's in a major cognitive decline?
I'm not a doctor. I'm not somebody who is testing his brain. I think every American citizen
Marianne,
has to look at the president and listen to the president.
Does he seem like somebody that has the strength and stamina and is articulate to be president?
You know,
we're going to go back to this question right here, because this question was also asked to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., not by Sean Hannity, but by Michael Smerconish on CNN. He asked the same question. Do you feel that right now Joe Biden has the mental capability to be president in 2024? And for some reason, both of them have a difficult time really answering this question, because it's a yes or no question. But listen to what Marianne says, because she does something similar.
Be fair for Joe Biden to debate you and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Why do you think he's not debating, and do you believe he's in a steep cognitive decline?
Well, I think in a democracy, what's important is that people have a right to see their options. I think this is an extremely important time in American history, and anyone who feels moved to run for president should have their say, and the voters should hear what they have to say, they should hear their agenda, and the voters should decide who they want to be president.
Okay, how about part two of my question? Do you believe he's in a major cognitive decline?
Do you believe he's in major cognitive decline? Okay.
I'm not a doctor. I'm not somebody who is testing his brain. I think every American citizen
Marianne,
has to
when you
look at
watch
the president and listen to the president.
Does he seem like somebody that has the strength and stamina and is articulate?
But that's the key question there, right? Do they feel like he is someone who's having this mental decline, that's having this decline? And we talked about this last night with RFK Jr. He didn't really want to answer that question. He said something similar to what Marianne is saying. And it's just like, to me, it's like, no, like that's a yes or no question. And I think you need to be honest with the people. This is not on you or anyone else to be nice to Joe Biden. Don't do it. Don't. I told you guys last night, this is not Street Fighter. This is Mortal Kombat. You have to do what Bernie Sanders did not do, and that was take the gloves off. If you go in there trying to dance with Joe, it is really going to rub particularly Bernie supporters the wrong way. So here we go.
And is articulate to be president?
You know, I wouldn't be running if I didn't think that I was a better candidate. I think I have the energy, and certainly I have the ideas that are better.
You got to answer my
because
question.
I'm not going to come on Fox News and talk to you, Sean, and say something like that. I'm not going to. I think every American can decide for themselves.
But if you believe it, you would tell us, would you?
My mind doesn't go into that. I don't believe that the energy is being demonstrated.
Does he seem like somebody that has the strength and stamina and is articulate to be president?
Okay, I think that's a simple question. Does he seem like he has the stamina to be president? We know Marianne's not a doctor. We know RFK Jr. is not a doctor. We know that. But we want you to answer the question, like truthfully.
You know, I wouldn't be running if I didn't think that I was a better candidate. I think I have the energy, and certainly I have the ideas that are better.
You got to answer my
question. I'm not going to come on Fox News and talk to you, Sean, and say something like that.
I'm sorry. So this is similar to what RFK Jr. did. This is exactly what I'm talking about, not answering that question. Am I the only one that's willing to answer this question? I'm going to answer this question. No. I do not think that Joe Biden right now has the stamina and the mental capacity to be president in 2024. No, I don't. That's how easy it is to say that. If you can't come out and say that when you're asked that question, it kind of gives people the impression that you are trying to stay in safe waters with Joe Biden, or that in some way you're still trying to defend Joe Biden, and that is a problem. That is a problem. If you are primary challenging Joe Biden and you are running with the intention that if you don't win, you're still going to be his buddy and his bro and his homie, that is a problem. You cannot do what Bernie Sanders did. That's part of the reason why some people left this Bernie movement to begin with, because Bernie caved. Because he told you in the end, vote for Hillary, vote for Joe Biden. Joe Biden is my friend. No, 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 no. That is a yes or no question. And I think both Marianne and RFK Jr. should answer that flat out and say, no, I don't think he has the ability to do it right now. That's all you got to do. That's it. I don't know why they're afraid to do that. And if they're afraid to criticize Joe Biden in that way, that is concerning for both of them. That's concerning.
I'm not going to. I think every American can decide for themselves.
But if you believe it, you would tell us, would you?
My mind doesn't go into that. I don't believe that the energy is being demonstrated that I believe will be necessary in order to take on either DeSantis or Trump in 2024. And if I did, yeah.
All right. You said that we need an economic U-turn in this country.
Yes.
What system economically do you support? I'm a capitalist. I believe in limited government, more freedom, lower taxes, and energy independence. What do you want?
You know, I think our capitalist system has lost some of its soul over the last 50 years. I believe that capitalism, you know, Adam Smith, who is the main architect of free market capitalism, said that free market capitalism cannot exist outside an ethical context. I think public policy has to have ethics. So I believe that the American people, our safety, our health, and our well-being should come before short-term profits for huge corporate entities. I believe that there are other stakeholders besides
you're
just
throwing out a lot of
stockholders.
cliches. I want to.
This is something that I don't like about the Hannity style of interview. I don't like the constant interrupting. I want people to finish what they're saying and before he comes in. And this isn't just something he does to Democrats. I watched him do this to Lauren Boebert too, by the way. So that's just his style, and I'm not fond of that.
I want to dig down deep here. What do you think? I want, for example, lower taxes, more freedom, less government bureaucracy, and I want energy independence. I want borders secure. I want law.
I want to debunk something that he mentioned here about what he wants. There's something he says about the government. Listen to this part.
I want to dig down deep here. What do you think? I want, for example, lower taxes, more freedom, less government bureaucracy.
The more freedom piece and less government bureaucracy, but at the same time, you want a larger police state. This is something that like me and Nick kind of like push back on, is when people will make these statements and they're like, well, yes, I want the government completely like out of my life. But at the same time, like we need to give the police more money and back the blue. And Hannity has been saying those things. So if you're asking for freedom and less government bureaucracy, how could you be in favor of a bloated police state? Those two, they go hand in hand. They go hand in hand. So it's like the people who say that they don't want big government, then you should be against the police state too, right? Like you shouldn't want the police to have more money. You shouldn't want to give the police more money because that's still big government. Let's go on.
And I want energy independence. I want borders secure. I want law and order. What do you want?
Okay, so let's go with each one. The first one, take each one at a time. The first one you said was lower taxes. I want lower taxes for middle class people. I want higher taxes for people who have huge amounts of wealth and are living at the effect of public policies. How high? I want to see a wealth tax. I think people who, first of all, I think we should look. In 2017, we have a $2 trillion tax cut. 83 cents of every dollar went to the very richest Americans and the very
let's see how smart you are in the economy.
The middle class.
What percentage of income taxes?
See this piece? This is why I said this is not the Fox show to go on, because this is what he does. This is how he constantly talks over, doesn't let you finish what you're trying to say. I think that Marianne should have continued on with her first statement that she was saying before she switched, because she switched, and I think she should have just continued on with that question and answered that question. So let's go back just a little bit because I also interrupted myself.
We have a $2 trillion tax cut. 83 cents of every dollar went to the very richest Americans and the very
let's see how smart you are in the economy.
The middle class.
What percentage of income taxes do the bottom 50% of Americans pay? What percent?
It's not about the.
She's allowing him to fluster her. See, this is the thing. So if you are the one that's being interviewed, one thing you got to be careful with is allowing the interviewer to upset you. And she just became flustered right there. So see, now it's like they know they got you. When he did this he did the same thing to Lauren Boebert. She didn't let him get to her. So when Marianne did this, it was like, and threw her hands up and did like that. Now they know they got you. So that's not something you want to show. Even if that's what you feel inside, you don't show that. So that's, especially if you're running for office, this is nothing, because Sean Hannity, okay, this is nothing. If they do happen to change their mind, or if somebody does a debate somewhere, maybe it is Charlemagne the God, I don't know. Maybe he decides, I'm going to host a Democrat debate. If somebody does it somewhere, there are going to be some questions that are asked by those moderators that you may not be fond of. Marianne knows this. She ran for president before, but also they may cut you off just like they did to people in 2020. And if people see you get flustered like that, then it kind of makes them wonder, okay, if she's that easily flustered or if she's showing it, then how will she be as president? How will she handle more pressing issues when it comes to foreign policy, when it comes to the economy? How will she handle it? Is she going to show that frustration to the public? So you got to be careful about that. And that goes for anybody, whether it's her or RFK Jr., etc. But she let him get to her there. Right there at that part.
83 cents of every dollar went to the very richest Americans and the very
let's see
richest
how smart you are in the economy.
The middle class.
What percentage of income taxes to the...
That part right there. So here's the thing. You can't... Okay, thanks, Eric. So here's the thing. You can't control how other people respond. You can't control what they say. But you can control the way that you respond. And that's what everyone will look at. Everyone knows Sean Hannity is going to be an ass. It's expected. But they're not really going to be looking at him. They're going to be looking at you. So this is an important piece.
Bottom 50% of Americans pay. What percent?
It's not about I'm not going to talk to you about the bottom middle class, the bottom half. I'm going to talk to you about the upper class, the 1%. So you asked me what I want to see. I want to see 50 million or more. I think people should pay an extra 2% in taxes. Wouldn't affect their day. And if someone has $1 billion, they should pay an extra 1%.
So you want to each American based on their need, from each American according to their ability.
You know, talk about cliches.
I'm asking.
I think that we should have fair taxation.
Is that a statement that you agree with? I'm asking.
Well, as a concept, but once again, that we should talk about what's real in this country.
That's Karl Marx's words, not mine.
Well, thank God I didn't say yes, because then you'd be calling me a Marxist.
You kind of did,
look,
but
Sean, well, no, I didn't. Look, Sean.
This piece right here was very telling, because I don't have a problem with that. And this is something I think that, especially if you are primary challenging Joe Biden, I think we need to start pushing back on people who are going to criticize you or demonize you because you may be further to the left. Listen to this.
From each American according to their ability.
You know, talk about cliches. I'm asking.
I
think that we should have fair taxation.
Is that a statement that you agree with? I'm asking.
Well, as a concept, but once again, that we should talk about what's real in this country.
That's Karl Marx's words, not mine.
Well, thank God I didn't say yes, because then you'd be calling me a Marxist.
You kind of.
What's wrong with that? See, this is the thing. This is why anyone, if you are running to the left of Joe Biden, but you still want to stay within the status quo, oftentimes what will happen is that anytime you are referred to as a socialist or a communist, or as they were just saying, a Marxist, then it's like you tend to shun that because you still want to be okay with the status quo. You want to be to the left of Joe Biden, but you still want to be okay with the status quo in the end so that you still get a seat at the table. And here's the problem with that. Even if you're not a Marxist, what's wrong with being called one? What's wrong with being called a socialist? What's wrong with being called a communist? You see the problem, guys? So what this has shown me is that at the end of the day, even people running to the left of Joe Biden are only willing to go so far away from the status quo. This is an important moment for people to understand, because even Bernie Sanders, who called himself a democratic socialist, was only willing to go but so far away from the status quo. If he wasn't, he wouldn't have told you to vote for Joe Biden, and he would have stayed with his movement and said, all right, let's build this up into something else. You see what I'm saying? So it's like, you want to play for the Red Sox, but you also want to play with the Yankees. And you just can't do both. You really can't. Either you go all in and you say, look, so what? You want to call me a Marxist? Great. So what? By the way, happy birthday, Karl Marx. That's how you handle that. But if you start to tiptoe back, then it's like, well, what are you trying to do? Because and this is not just a Marianne thing. I'm noticing this with anybody who's so much to the left of Joe Biden. This is what they tend to do. They start to walk back anything that seems to turn off the status quo to the point where they may be demonized. And so because that could happen to them, they don't want to embrace it. What Marianne should have said here was, and so what? That's something to pay attention to.
And it did,
Look,
but
Sean,
you know.
well, no, I didn't. Look, Sean, look, I did.
Let me ask you.
You didn't trap me there.
Would you support me in this? Do you support energy independence, and we ought not be importing oil from countries that hate us and countries like Venezuela? Would you support me on that?
I think that I would support you that we should not be getting oil or selling arms, by the way, to countries that hate us. But I also want to see a habit.
We shouldn't be selling arms to countries, period. Like it's not just countries that hate
us and countries like Venezuela. Would you support me on that?
I think that I would support you that we should not be getting oil or selling arms, by the way, to countries that hate us. But I also want to see a habitable planet in 100 years.
We shouldn't be selling arms to anybody. See, this is how you break up the military industrial complex. It's like, if you're against us selling arms to countries that hate us, but you are right with us selling arms to countries that are allies or support us, then how are you going to get into the environmental conversation and you still supporting the military industrial complex? This is a place that we have to come to in this country and in this space. And Jill Stein and I talked about this before. If you are still agreeing with selling the arms to the countries who are our allies, who do not hate us, and then you start to dive into the environmental conversation, again, you can't play for the Red Sox and the Yankees. You got to pick one. You can't be on both of these teams. You see, this is the middle thing. Like, you can't be in the middle on this. You cannot, guys, I'm going to say this very clearly, and I don't want to lose my voice. You cannot be in the middle when it comes to the environment. You cannot. And she's going to go on and tell you just why. Now listen to this.
I want to see massive investments in green energy. I want to see a just transition from a dirty economy to a clean economy.
How much money? We're now spending over $50 billion. Every government agency is spending something on the
economy and a green economy. This is
like Venezuela. Would you support me on that?
I think that I would support you that we should not be getting oil or.
She also missed the Venezuela piece. You see how he slid that in there? That's the country that they refer to demonize communism and to demonize socialism. They say, oh no, we're going to be like Venezuela. He could have mentioned any other country. Marianne should have pushed back on that, but he slid that in. But listen to this.
Selling arms, by the way, to countries that hate us. But I also want to see a habitable planet in 100 years.
And if you want to see a habitable planet in 100 years, then you can't still be in agreement with selling the arms. When we talk about how the military industrial complex is the largest single most polluter in the world, it's not just the drone strikes and the bombs. It's also the military tanks. It's the vehicles. It's the weapons. It's the environmental pollution that stays around even after the war has ended and the people get sick years later after the war is gone. So you can't have it both ways. You cannot. And I'm willing to talk to anybody about this issue, but you cannot have it both ways if you want this planet to be habitable in 100 years. Look at the climate report. Look at the climate report from the committee that we were talking about when Jill Stein came on. In fact, I'll pull that number up for you so you can see it.
I want to see massive investments in green energy. I want to see a just transition from a dirty economy to a clean economy.
How
and for
much
that
money?
matter,
We're now spending over $50 billion. Every government agency is spending something on the climate alarmist religious cult. How many billions of dollars do you want to invest in it? Give me a number.
Listen, we have $858 billion right now in our military expenditure every year, and they are the largest institutional emitter of greenhouse gases.
So Marianne's letting you know she knows that. She knows just what I just said. And at the same time, she still want to play for both two teams at the same time. You cannot. She is knowledgeable of this fact. She is very much aware. So you still can't support selling the arms. That's the problem. Chip said this is a joke. I don't know what else to say.
The Congressional Budget Office, hardly a liberal organization, says that we could take out $1 trillion of that over the next decade and cut greenhouse gases.
But natural gas is a clean burning fossil fuel. All right, I got to ask you about some of the weird stuff you've said.
Okay.
Okay, you have said your body is merely your space station from whence you beam your love to the universe. Don't just relate to the station, relate to the beams. You said everyone feels on some level like an alien in this world because we are. We come from another realm of consciousness and long from home. What the hell does that mean?
I'm surprised to hear you say that because I would think that you would recognize that as a very traditional religious and spiritual perspective, that we are spirits, that God created us as spirits. And that is what we are. And we are here to love one another. And we don't feel deeply at home on a spiritual level on this planet because this world is not based on love the way it should be. I think those words are
all right. That's a fair answer. I'm a Christian. I believe in God the Father, that God created every man, woman, and child on this earth. I believe in Jesus Christ, his son, that died and resurrected, came back from the dead to save all of us from.
I'm not quite sure what that has to do with this conversation. I just
our sins. That's what I believe. So anyway, Marianne, I appreciate you taking the heat. Thanks for being here. You're welcome back anytime.
So I don't think that was probably the best Fox show to go on to. Miguel, oh no. Miguel goes, amen? Question mark. I think there was some troubling moments there. Like really, like I don't know what it is with these candidates, man. They're afraid of being called a Marxist or a socialist. They're afraid to say that Joe Biden does not have the mental capacity to be president in 2024. I don't have time for it. Like I really don't. Like I'm just like, this is Bernie all over again. Joe's my good friend. No, he's not your friend. He should not be your friend. It is okay to criticize Joe Biden. It is okay to call out Joe Biden by name. And I'm going to keep it real. If Marianne and RFK Jr. really want a crack at this, still don't think they're going to win. But if they really want to crack at this, they're going to have to start punching Joe Biden in the face, not physically. They're going to have to really knock Joe out, and they're going to have to start calling him out by name, and they're going to have to do so based on policy and policy alone. Don't make it personal. If you make it personal, then they're really going to come for you and be like, you're not serious, but do it on policy alone. And you cannot be afraid of someone calling you a Marxist or a socialist or a communist whatsoever. This is 2023 and my generation, we're not really putting up with this. Like really not. No, I just can't. I can't. So let me go to some of the comments because I could see some of the remarks. If you have not had a chance to do so, please go ahead and hit that like button, guys. That helps me out with the algorithm. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for the super chat, Mary Ebony. It's like Hannity is seeking for a validation and sound bites. That's what it feels like. That's what it felt like. Thank you for the super chat in Harkin. Kinky says, Sabby, Republicans are to the left of Joe Biden. I hear you.